we are heading over to see what's being done. We're supposed to be getting rock delivered this morning.
Most people see a peaceful farm life and assume they know the whole story. But what if the calm videos, warm smiles, and simple routines were only part of the picture? Meredith Bern, better known as This Farm Wife, built an audience by sharing real moments from her family's farm life. Yet over time, viewers began noticing subtle changes, shifts in tone, breaks in posting, and moments that raised quiet questions. What really happens when real life collides with an online audience hungry for answers? Because behind the scenes, this story goes much deeper than anyone expected. Before anyone called her This Farm Wife, Meredith Bern lived a life that made sense on paper. A steady corporate sales career, predictable income, clear expectations, the kind of path most people stick with even when it quietly drains them. But somewhere along the way, that version of her life stopped feeling right. Not dramatic, not sudden, just heavy. And when that feeling lingers long enough, it forces a decision most people avoid. Walking away from corporate work isn't just quitting a job. It's stepping off a ladder you already climbed. It's explaining yourself to friends who think you're reckless. It's trading control for uncertainty. And that's exactly what she did, leaving behind meetings and metrics for early mornings, physical labor, and a farm that doesn't care if you're exhausted or overwhelmed. What made it riskier was timing. This wasn't a someday dream. She and her husband were raising a family, building a farm operation and choosing to homeschool all at once. No safety net, no blueprint, just belief that a different kind of life was worth the gamble. The internet loves to romanticize that moment, but the reality is harsher. Farms don't pause while you figure things out. Bills still show up, animals still need care, weather still ruins plans. That leap became the foundation of everything viewers would later connect with. Not perfection, commitment. She wasn't pretending farm life was easier, she was choosing it anyway, and that decision set the tone for her entire online presence. But once you make a leap like that, there's no stepping back quietly. And what came next would pull far more eyes into her world than she ever expected. When her content started gaining traction, it wasn't because it was polished or perfectly planned. It was the opposite. Meredith didn't show up online acting like an expert or selling a fantasy. She showed up like someone figuring things out in real time. That's what made people stop scrolling. In a space flooded with highlight reels and staged simple living, her videos felt uncomfortably honest. She talked about faith, exhaustion, doubt, and gratitude in the same breath. One post might be warm and reflective, the next quietly heavy, and viewers recognized that rhythm instantly because it felt like real life. She wasn't trying to glamorize farm living or pretend it was peaceful all the time. She showed the beauty, but she never hid the weight that came with it. That balance made people feel like they weren't watching content. They were listening to someone they trusted. The name This Farm Wife became more than a label. It turned into an identity people projected onto. To some viewers, she represented slowing down. To others, faith and family values. And for many, she was proof that you could walk away from a conventional life and still build something meaningful. That emotional connection is powerful, but it's also dangerous because once an audience decides what you represent, they start expecting consistency, comfort, and access. And the more relatable she became, the more invested people felt. Every post wasn't just content anymore, it was reassurance. When things felt normal, viewers relaxed. When something felt off, they noticed immediately. And that's the trade-off no one warns you about when authenticity becomes your brand. Because once people believe they know you, they start believing they deserve explanations. And that quiet shift would matter more than anyone realized later on. From the outside, the farm looked like scenery, wide land, animals moving slowly through fields, quiet mornings that felt almost therapeutic through a screen. But real farm life doesn't stay aesthetic for long. It demands everything, every day, whether you're emotionally ready or not. And that's the part most viewers never fully see. Running a cattle and crop operation means living on someone else's clock. Animals don't care about bad sleep or burnout. Weather doesn't care about plans. One mistake, one delayed decision, or one broken piece of equipment can ripple through weeks of work. And unlike a traditional job, there's no clocking out. The farm follows you into the house, into dinner conversations, into the middle of the night. Add homeschooling on top of that, and the pressure multiplies. Teaching your kids while managing land, livestock, and a growing online audience isn't just multitasking, it's mental overload. Every day becomes a balancing act, between being present as a parent, reliable as a partner, and consistent as a creator. And consistency online is a silent demand. Viewers don't see the chaos behind the camera. They just know when uploads slow down or energy shifts. That's when the illusion cracks. Because the farm was never just content, it was the foundation holding everything up. And when life on the farm gets hard, there's no separating it from the brand. If the cattle need attention, the video waits. If the crops demand work, the audience gets silence. And silence online is loud. This is where things quietly changed. Not dramatically, not all at once. But the weight started showing through the edges of her content. And viewers, even without details, could feel it. Something was pulling focus away from the screen. And what started as curiosity would soon turn into concern. And then questions no one was prepared to answer. The shift didn't come with a dramatic announcement or a detailed explanation. It came quietly. A short message, a change in tone. Meredith publicly mentioned an accident and said her focus needed to be on her husband and her family. That was it. No elaboration, no timeline. Just a clear boundary. And for viewers who felt deeply connected, that single word carried weight. On a farm, accidents aren't abstract. They're the kind of events that stop everything instantly. One moment you're thinking about chores, schedules, and responsibilities. The next, none of that matters. When something goes wrong in that environment, it's rarely minor. And even without details, most people understood that this wasn't a routine setback. It was the kind of moment that forces you to reassess priorities in real time. What stood out wasn't just the incident itself, but what followed. Posting slowed. The content felt heavier. The familiar rhythm was gone. And while some viewers respected the silence, others struggled with it. Because when someone has built a platform on sharing daily life, a sudden pause feels louder than any update. People weren't just watching anymore, they were waiting. That's where tension quietly formed. Supportive comments mixed with anxious questions. Concern slowly blurred into curiosity. And curiosity, online, doesn't stay patient for long. The lack of specifics left space for interpretation, and the internet is never gentle with empty space. This was the moment her audience realized something important. They were no longer just following a farm story. They were witnessing a real family navigating something serious, in real time, without a script. And while Meredith chose privacy, the attention didn't disappear. It intensified. Because once viewers sense a turning point, they don't just move on. They start searching for answers, even when there may be none to give. Silence online never stays neutral for long. Once Meredith stepped back and details stayed limited, viewers did what audiences always do. They started connecting dots that weren't necessarily meant to be connected. Comments shifted from support to speculation. Questions repeated. Then theories started forming, quietly at first before spreading outward. People noticed small things, gaps between posts, changes in tone, content that felt more guarded. For longtime followers, those details felt meaningful, even if they weren't meant to be. And because the internet thrives on unanswered questions, outside voices stepped in, reaction videos. What really happened titles, thumbnails hinting at secrets, tension, or hidden truths. None offering proof, just confidence. This is where things get messy. Speculation online doesn't need facts to grow, it feeds on uncertainty. One creator repeats a rumor, another adds dramatic language. Suddenly, a personal family situation becomes a storyline strangers feel qualified to analyze. And once that cycle starts, it's almost impossible to stop. Even silence becomes evidence in the eyes of people searching for conclusions. What's important is what wasn't said. There were no public accusations confirmed, no official statements outlining wrongdoing, just a family choosing privacy during what appeared to be a serious moment. But that didn't slow the rumor machine. If anything, it fueled it. Because clarity kills curiosity, and there wasn't any. This was the turning point where concern morphed into entitlement. Some viewers felt owed answers simply because they'd watched for years. Others confused empathy with access. And the louder the speculation grew, the harder it became to address anything without feeding it. In trying to protect her family, Meredith unknowingly stepped into one of the internet's harshest traps. Because when creators don't explain, the internet will. And what came next would test the limits of how much of a life should ever be shared online. At this point, Meredith wasn't just balancing farm life and family, she was navigating something far more complicated: the invisible contract between creator and audience. When you build a platform by sharing your life, people start believing they're part of it, not as spectators but as participants. And when that access suddenly tightens, it doesn't feel neutral to them, it feels personal. From Meredith's side, the choice was simple: protect her husband, protect her kids, protect whatever normalcy they still had. But online, that decision collided with expectations she never formally agreed to. Followers had grown used to daily glimpses, personal reflections, and emotional honesty. Silence, even when justified, felt like a break in trust to some viewers, even though no promise had been broken. That's the trap of authenticity online. The more genuine you are, the more people assume you'll stay that way no matter the cost. But real life doesn't ask permission before. It falls apart. And when it does, the healthiest move is often stepping back. The problem is, the algorithm doesn't reward boundaries. It rewards consistency, engagement, transparency. And when those disappear, attention doesn't fade, it mutates. Supportive voices were still there, but they were drowned out by louder demands. Just tell us you're okay. We deserve an update. Statements that sounded caring but carried entitlement underneath. And responding became risky. Say too little and rumors grow. Say too much and private pain becomes public property. This section of her story isn't about scandal. It's about pressure. The kind that builds quietly until every decision feels wrong. Share and you expose your family. Don't share and strangers decide the narrative for you. And once a creator reaches that crossroads, there's no clean way out, only choices about which consequences you're willing to live with. And that reality would shape everything that followed. At the end of the day, Meredith Bernard's story isn't about secrets or scandals. It's about what happens when real life collides with an audience that wants answers. This farm wife was built on honesty, but even honesty has limits when family, safety, and reality take priority. The internet doesn't always respect those boundaries, and silence often gets twisted into something it's not. What her story really exposes is a bigger truth. Behind every relatable creator is a real person carrying weight the camera never sees. And sometimes, choosing privacy is the bravest decision of all.